We have three quite distinct readings today, but I think they accompany each other in different ways. I think they're quite fitting for our reflection as we begin lockdown again here in Sydney. From the Book of Wisdom, from the Old Testament, we hear that death was not God's doing. Death is not the way God intends. It's an impact, it's a cause of sin, of our rejection of God, of the presence of evil. Death is not something we should want to bring on. It's not what God intends. What we're told is, God did not make man imperishable, but he made him in the image of his own nature. The way we've been made is not necessarily that we should live forever. That's not necessarily the way God made us, but he made us in his image, in his nature. So what is the nature of God? The nature of God is one of love. It's one to preserve and to cherish life. Death can easily be something that, if we're careless, our life is so fragile that we can bring on death very easily if we are careless. But then there are other contexts where death happens where we've been as attentive to every requirement needed. And part of the nature of who we are is perhaps to also be able to love, but to also know that there is a place of eternity. To let go at times those who have passed, as we're called to do with the loss of those very close to us in recent times. Death was not God's doing. This was Jewish wisdom. But I think this is something that can help us today as well. The second reading, St. Paul writing to the Corinthians, asks us to, in essence, take a balance of our life, to see where we have a surplus, and to do what we can to assist others where there is a surplus. He says that you have the most of everything. And we have many, many great things, and we can sometimes take them for granted. But St. Paul's reminding us, cherish everything that you have, but don't just hold it close to yourself. Be generous. Be generous in sharing of your resources with others, to help others. Not because you're going to get something in return, but because it's the right thing to do. We don't necessarily need to be the richest person in the world to help someone. If we have a little surplus, something a little left over, we can help our neighbour. We can help our family. And that's not just in material things. That's also with our time and with our treasures, with our knowledge, our abilities, our talents. You have the most of everything, of faith, of eloquence, of understanding, of keenness for any cause, and the biggest share of affection. These are beautiful words. We move to our gospel, and today we heard Jesus bringing a little girl who had died back to life. And there are a few interesting things, I think, in the way that this gospel has been written. I think one of perhaps the more amusing, or perhaps the more real elements of this story is what happens towards the end. Jesus comes and the girl has died. People are in hysterics. They're weeping and wailing. And Jesus says, the girl has not died, but she's asleep. And then we're told those around the girl, those around Jesus, just laugh. They laugh probably with grief. It's such a human thing to think, oh, well, this is just not possible. Jesus asks them to have faith. But they just start to laugh. This is not possible. Jesus then comes in and he has this beautiful phrase, Talitha cum, we have in the original. Little girl, I tell you to get up. I think this phrase is a good phrase for all of us as we begin lockdown, telling us to get up. Lockdown doesn't mean that we stop going about our Christian activities. Yes, we're perhaps refined or restrained to our own home and to what we're able to do when we're able to get out of the house under the certain rules. But we're told to get up. And what we're told with this little girl is that as soon as she gets up, at once she begins to walk about. And we're told she does this because she's 12 years old. But little children are not meant to be restrained. And it's the challenge for all of us, those who've got little children at home, over the next couple of weeks. How can you provide space that's safe for them to be able to walk about? Because that's part of what children do. We're not called to necessarily just sit or lie. Even during the Mass, we're not called to just, when we're participating via a live stream, just to sit there. We're called to stand. We're called to kneel. We're called to get up and down. We're called to rise. And I think this gospel today reminds us of this. Little girl, I tell you to get up. So if you're participating in our live stream today for the first time in a long time, try to get up. If you're still in bed, maybe put your slippers on or put some socks on and get up out of bed to participate in the Mass. Maybe during the Eucharistic prayer, maybe kneel if you're able to. Maybe get up and stand in some of the points where we will be standing here in the church, as we would do normally. Because posture, the way we move our body, exercise, is part of who we are. And that was what happened with this little girl. So Jesus says, tell the little girl, get up. And I think this is a great phrase for us to think about as well. At this, we're told, they were overcome with astonishment, and he ordered them not to let anyone know about it. And then he told them to give the girl something to eat. Over the next few days, let's be people who exercise. The government says that's an essential activity, to exercise, to do physical exercise, but also to exercise, to get up, to walk about, to get up, stand, kneel, to walk around, maybe to walk by the church, to come together and just spend maybe with your little kids just a few moments out the front of the church. And let us eat together. Our readings today, 3 different elements. One is about sharing from our surplus. That was the second reading. The first was about death. It's not God's plan for death. God's plan for us is his nature, his love. How are we welcoming God's nature into us? And then our gospel today, Jesus raising this girl to life and asking the girl to get up. And then she starts to walk about. Let's be active over the next few weeks. Let's get up. Even during the Mass today, let's get up out of bed and start to pray. And then let's get together to eat where we can as a family, as a household. Let's be active, and let's, in our surplus, do what we can to assist others as well. Little girl, I tell you to get up.